The Boston Celtics head into game 2 against the New York Knicks with a little bit of pressure building on their shoulders. They dropped game 1 after a absolute ridiculously bad 3-point shooting night. And now they need to try and tie that series. The worst thing that they could do is drop this game 2 and then have to go to MSG on the back of 0-2 at home. That's going to make it really tough to win this series. Fortunately, it looks like one guy's ready to step up, and he's been stepping up when on the floor over the first and second round, and that's the Jrue Holiday. He's been in and out the rotation during the postseason with injury, but he played a big role against the Knicks. Even though it wasn't a winning performance, he definitely was showcasing why he could be an X factor in this series. I'm going to talk about it with my homie, compadre, co-host in crime, Mr. Billy Calabrese. Billy, what's popping, yo?
What's up, everybody? You guys ready for this game too?
I'm ready, dude. I don't know if everybody watching is, but I'm ready. I feel like this is one of those games where you see the Celtics come back and absolutely torch. They're going to the amount of paint touches that I'm expecting from this game, where they're just trying, hopefully not overcorrect, but get back to what they did well last season, should be really important. And I think that when you look at the paint touches, there was only 2 guys in game 1 that really even tried to penetrate, tried to pressure that defense, wanted to test what New York would do, whether they would send gap help, whether they'd close out, whether they'd collapse. And that was Jaylen Brown, who is nowhere near 100%. He's better than he was. And I know he said he feels like his knee's in a good place, but you can tell he still hasn't got that explosiveness. And that first step is still I'd say a millisecond or 2, maybe 3, 4, slower than usual. The other guy on that was Jrue Holiday. Jrue Holiday really penetrated a lot. I felt like he was trying to create off the drive. He was trying to be very aggressive, and that kind of mirrors what we saw from him in game 1 and 2 against Orlando. I felt like Jrue Holiday was one of the best players in that series. It really suited him, the physicality, the way that Orlando likes to play a compact defense. Jrue was kind of that guy that was getting in between the cracks and like busting them open for everybody else. Against the Knicks, it was a different type of defense. New York didn't play as much high pressure on the perimeter, but they definitely wanted to take away driving lanes. And Jrue just continually found ways to get there, whether that's as a screen and roll guy, whether that was as an off-ball cutter. They were positioning him in the mid-range at times as well. I felt like this was a really good indication of what Jrue can bring to this rotation, especially against the Knicks team that are going to be so concerned with the three-point line that they might be willing to give up some stuff around the rim.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm leaning to, and especially if they're gonna play us like that at the 3-point line, we can get him back in the dunker spot where he had some success a lot last year and finally had success this year in game 1. But also, it's just his active. He's so active on both ends. So, like we saw in the Orlando series, he was like the best defender on Banchero. So now it's interesting now that he's going back to the guards. He's guarding the Brunsons, the Harts, even like when it's the bench units like Campaign, who had a really good first round. He just, makes him completely irrelevant. All those kind of guards that would come in. And now we got the Jrue stopper back. And it's really awesome. We always talk about playoff Al. I think we're seeing playoff Jrue.
And this is the wild thing, right? If you look back at Jrue in Boston, this was the first time in his entire Celtics career that he's been behind in a playoff series. And it's one game from a game where the Celtics needed to miss 45 3-point shots to even lose. And they lost by a hair. So his value is so underrated. And when you talk about defense, I've got the numbers here on Brunson. I feel like he shackled Brunson for a large portion. Matched up with him for 7 minutes and 8 seconds, which is quite a long time to match up with a guy, especially someone as high usage as Brunson that tries to get off his primary defender as much as possible. Held him to 2 of 8 shooting from the field, 25%. 1 of 3 from deep, 33.3%. Gave up 1 foul, which was a 3-point foul, but Brunson only hit 2 of those 3 shots. And I think that's really important when you're matching up with somebody like Brunson that has a bit of a reputation for being a flopper, knows how to get to the line, knows how to manipulate a defense to be a little bit over aggressive with him at times. Jrue played Brunson perfectly. I think Jrue really held him down. When you're holding the Knicks' best scoring threat to 25% shooting, you're doing something right, because if Brunson isn't firing on all cylinders and isn't clicking, a lot of what the Knicks try and do offensively doesn't really work as well. I think you also had some cross-matching time, so he matched up with Towns for 2 minutes and 17 seconds. Towns only took 1 shot in those 2 minutes. which again, Towns is a high volume guy for New York. He's one of their higher usage guys. So the fact that Jrue done a really good job of denying those opportunities, didn't do a great job in, like, he's never going to be the guy that can contest Cat because the height difference is there. But the denial, the ball denial, the shot deterrence there from just being underneath Cat's hips, that's impressive. Matched up with Josh Hart for 2 minutes. You don't expect Josh Hart to be making anything. And then he spent some time on Bridges and Anunoby. That versatility is a big reason why Jrue's going to be so important, not just defensively, but what he can do from different areas of the floor offensively because of that, like playing bigger than what he actually is.
And it's more of like that vocal, like the way he kind of coaches the defense on the court. He's like an extra coach on the court. He's telling guys where to go, where to switch. He yells at Jaylen Brown every time Jaylen Brown leaves his man to overhelp, which happened a lot. That's how OG got so many open threes, because Brown overhelped twice, especially that big one in the corner. That is going to just remind me of that stupid Toronto series where it's like, Jaylen, what are you watching? Why are you always ball watching? And then I guess Tatum got another one where OG was able to take advantage too. But it's just having that guy, that quarterback on the court that can call out the right coverages and also cut off their switches, because let's face it, the Knicks definitely try to do a little killer whale against us.
They're built to be like Boston, though, right? If you go back and look at the moves they made during the summer, they added Bridges, which was another wing stopper, because they'd picked up OG Anunoby in December 2023. They re-signed Anunoby to an extension during the summer. Then they go and get Mikal Bridges. Now you have two very high level, two of the better wing defenders in the NBA. That was definitely to match up with Tatum and Brown. Then you go and get Karl Anthony Towns, because that gives you a very similar look to what Boston can do in a 5-out with very similar style players. It's just that New York are built around guard scoring, where Boston are built around wing scoring. I think Anunoby's been great during this postseason. He really heated up towards the end of the regular season and has just carried that into the postseason. So New York are built very similarly to Boston, and they're kind of built in Boston's image, but also in a way to combat what the Celtics do well. This is a series that the Knicks front office have definitely been trying to build their roster towards. So, the East runs through Boston. If you can beat Boston, then you've got a good chance of making the NBA Finals. So with that being said, I think that the fact that New York ran some similar style offense shouldn't be too much of a shock, because they were designed to do that. That was one of the reasons they sacrificed some of their defensive identity to get the additional offensive firepower. Boston run it better because they're more experienced, especially in the postseason. They're very well-tuned, well-oiled. And again, it took the Celtics to miss 45 of their three-point attempts for them to lose. So that shooting variance to me it's always going to be there. It's always a risk. They should have drove more, obviously. But that's where I feel like Jrue is going to be so important, right? Because when you run inverted screen and rolls, which just means the smaller guy is screening for a bigger guy rather than a normal screen and roll where a big guy is screening for a smaller guy, Jrue is so good at being like that short roll creator. He's so good at knowing when to pick a pass, knowing when to draw guys in and kick it out. He can also hit that floater. He's strong enough to drive and bang down low. And he can knock down the free ball, especially in the corner, if given the opportunity. So I think that versatility is going to become far more important as New York start to adjust. Once Boston starts knocking down its threes and New York needs to adjust a little bit, I think Jrue, in terms of being an interior creator and an interior scorer, is going to become even more important, because the Knicks defense isn't just going to keep baiting the 3-point shot once Boston and knocking them down. They baited it in game one because especially in that second half, like midway through the third quarter, when everything started to fall to shit, because they knew that the Celtics were going to take those shots and they knew they weren't falling. When they are, I think Jrue's going to have a lot of space in that middle of the floor to be like a free safety and just causing absolute havoc.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's his responsibility, especially on offense, is only going to grow as the series goes on. Because let's face it, we're probably going to be without Hauser for a while, and we don't know what the heck is going to go on with Porzingis. I actually think it's a detriment to play him if he's this sick. I thought that got us out of rhythm to start the game, trying to force feed him when it just was obvious that he didn't have it. He looked lethargic on the court. But that's, neither here nor there. But I don't think Joe's going to go deeper into the bench. I think he's going to play the 7-8 guys that we do have in the rotation and just play them more. That's going to put a lot more offensive responsibility on guys like Jrue, and he can handle it. I mean, he's built for it. He's done it in the playoffs time and time again. So I think the 16 points that he dropped, in game one, that's not an outlier. Like, that's going to pretty much be the standard. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him drop a couple 20, 25 pieces as well, because his responsibility is only going to grow with these guys out.
And I've said this a few times. I think I said this recently on this podcast. Scalability is one of Jrue's biggest weapons. His ability to scale from being a 10-point a game guy who's just fully focused on defense with a little bit of creation to becoming like a 20, 22 point a night guy with 5 or 6 assists and 5 or 6 rebounds. He can do either one of the ends of those spectrum and anything in between, right? And I think that when you're going up against a team like New York, and I feel like Josh Hart is the Knicks' answer to Jrue Holiday. Not so, maybe more to Marcus Smart than Jrue Holiday actually, but either way, I feel like Josh Hart plays a very integral role for New York. So when you're going up against a team that has a guy like that, that's an emotional leader, a physical leader, and he can galvanize his team into going on runs, having somebody like Jrue that can scale, like, yo, I've been an offensive outlet for the first 33 minutes of the game, right? We're deep into the game now. Knicks are on a run. Let me scale back my offensive responsibilities and scale up my defensive responsibilities to lock down this team. That type of, again, for lack of a better word, scalability makes him such a two-way threat and such an important cog in everything the Celtics do, because once Jrue scales one way, Derek likely scales the other, right? And it's constantly this balancing act that other teams, one, really struggle to figure out, and two, just don't have the luxury of implementing on their side of the ball.
Yeah, especially with whatever's going on with Derek White. His catch and shoot threes has just not been there the last couple months. I mean, shooting comes and goes. Everybody has slumps, but especially with the way it's funny that Holiday shot's coming back as White is kind of going the other way. Not that you don't trust either of them in a big spot, no matter what. But it is nice that you have that backcourt that are basically like the Wardens. They can kind of switch roles. So if one is more defensive, the other one can be more offensive. But what I really love about Jrue, especially on the, obviously with defense, he does it without fouling. He doesn't get foul baited like a lot of these other guys do. And with a matchup like Brunson, that's extremely vital.
I mean, if you look at it here, he had one shooting foul against everyone he matched up with on, was it Sunday? Monday? On Monday. Right. That one foul was on Brunson. And I feel like if you guard Brunson for 7 minutes and only foul him once, like, that's a testament to the way you play defense anyway. Didn't foul anyone else. And I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It's one thing being an elite defender. It's another thing being an elite defender that doesn't get put in foul trouble too frequently. I mean, thinking back, have we ever seen Jrue get into foul trouble since he's been in a Celtics uniform? I'm sure there's a game or two where it's happened, but nothing really like jumps out to memory. Like, shit, this is a really good example of that.
I would wager any amount of money that he's never fouled out as a Celtic.
No, and even then, like foul trouble, like an early 2 or 3. I'm sure it's happened. Like, I think it might have happened, but again, nothing really jumps out like, yo, that cost us the game. That cost the Celtics an opportunity. He's just solid, really great decision maker on both sides of the floor. Really trustworthy decision maker on both sides of the floor. And has elite processing speed, again, on both sides of the floor. A lot of people talk about processing speed offensively and how that can be a separation between a high-level guy and an elite guy, is just how quickly you perceive things happening on the floor. It's exactly the same on defense. A lot of people will just call it defensive IQ, but it's the same shit, right? It's how quickly you see someone, process it, and then know how to react. And I think that Jrue isn't on like a Draymond level of defensive IQ, but he's among the higher defensive IQ guys in the NBA. And when you pair him with Al Horford and with Derek White, and I feel like Jaylen Brown doesn't have the same level of defensive IQ, but he's got like that defensive, how can I put it, want to, or like, that defensive, that push. He wants to be an elite defender. So when you have so many guys that are willing to, like, that are capable of reading the game at an elite level on offense, and 2 or 3 of them can also do it on the other side of the floor, it's really difficult to try and break this team down over a 7-game series. I just feel like Jrue's going to be, if healthy, obviously health is an issue here for Jrue. But if healthy, I feel like he's going to be that third star for this series. It's not going to be Porzingis. He hasn't had a great playoffs anyway, and I know there's this injury or illness or whatever it is, but he hasn't played up to the level you'd hope in the postseason so far. In the 3 games that we've seen Jrue, he's kind of been that third star, and I feel like he's going to really make that role his own, and that's why we're saying he's the X factor.
Yeah, it's so cool to see when we didn't even know if he'd be ready by game 1.
Yeah,
Like, it was so odd, that injury, and then it just kinda lingered, but maybe it was just more precaution than, actual sitting him out, in those Orlando games, but, I mean, he looked great. If that's the Drew we're getting, I mean, start getting ready to get the duck boats ready, because this version of Jrue Holiday takes us to another level that we haven't seen since last year.
and with that, I'm going to say this. Make sure you're tuning in tomorrow. We're going to be joined by one of the bigger Knicks guys, bigger Knicks reporters, coverages, analysts, however you want to talk about it, to break down game 2, look ahead to game 3. Hopefully, it's a 1-1 series heading over to MSG. If not, then we're probably going to have to deal with a lot of gloating on that episode, and I really don't want to have to do that. So the Celtics need to do what they need to do. I've got a feeling this will be another Jrue game. I think it will be another big Jrue night. I'm really, really expecting a win here. I think anything less than a win will be unacceptable after the way they played in game 1. Just before you go, make sure to subscribe to the Celtics Chronicle newsletter. Hit subscribe here so you can get more. Obviously, hit the notifications as well so you know when the new episodes drop. And go show Billy some love over at Letterboxd. Billy be our local movie review guy.
Yeah, CBO041 at Letterboxd. Go see Thunderbolts. The MCU is back.
There we go. With everything being said, let's go Celtics. Game 2. Big, big, big night ahead. I'm here for it. We'll catch y'all tomorrow.